President Trump posting on Truth Social, Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions, help is on the way. He will hold an emergency meeting with Secretary of State Rubio. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Brian Mast is going to join me. He's joining me right now. Does the president have to act now? It seems like he's not in a corner, but he's made threats. The Iranians have responded with more killings. Does the president have to act now?
The president is responding to the situation on the ground there, which is thousands of Iranians are being killed. And I think we are in a moment where my personal assessment is regime change is almost inevitable there. And that's more so because of the regime. Number one, everybody knows they're hugely dictatorial. They'll kill thousands of their people, but the people have responded to the point of something almost unheard of. They've killed several hundred of government security forces. That's unheard of. You could take an American George Washington $1 bill. You go down to the currency exchange, they're going to give you back about 1 million to $1.5 million reals for $1 American. It's literally the most worthless currency. They can't provide basic things like water, and they're spending any extra dollars that they have in supporting groups like the Houthis and Hezbollah for points of terrorism around the world. Those things cause me to assess that regime change there is about inevitable. They probably have jets standing by to take them to Moscow with as much wealth as they can carry. I hope all of their neighbors are prepared to not grant them airspace.
So you think that they can be overthrown without military action from the United States?
I think military action from the United States is something that the MO of this administration is to help get significant hurdles out of the way for people to move to a point where they have a hopeful future. Whether you're looking at what took place in Syria, whether you're looking at what just recently happened in Venezuela, one morning operation, and the Venezuelan people have an opportunity to get to the point of free and fair elections. I think the writing is on the wall right now for what's going on with Iran, that there's a few significant hurdles. Those hurdles are moved out of the way. There's a totally new opportunity for the Iranian people.
On Thursday, President Trump hosts Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, at the White House. Does Trump want her to lead the new Venezuela?
I think President Trump is going to assess her. I would say two things about her. Number one, I think she's going to show up with a large amount of gratitude for what President Trump did in Venezuela. And that goes a long way with the administration. I think he's going to want to see that gratitude for the significant actions that took place. I think number two is he's going to be assessing her, sizing her up. Are you strong enough to deal with those significant forces, China, Russia, Iran, who want to be direct adversaries in the backyard of the United States of America? Is she strong enough to deal with them? I think that's the assessment he's going to be making.
President Trump's pushing for a deal with Cuba, but their president is refusing to negotiate. He says they're going to defend themselves, quote, to the last drop of blood. Can there be a deal between the U.S. and Cuba?
I've heard similar things from leaders like Maduro. I would tell the Cuban leader maybe go take a visiting hours visit to Rikers Island, talk with Maduro about what his stance was, and understand that the United States of America, we are in a new era of defending the American homeland above all else, whether it's with our carrier battle groups in the Gulf, whether it's against illegal immigration on our borders, whether it's against drugs, whether it's against the cartels in Mexico or drugs coming out of Colombia or anywhere else. This administration, this president, above all, will at all costs defend the American homeland, and that includes against Cuba.
Got it. Brian Mast, Congressman, thanks so much for joining us, sir. I'll see you again real soon.
Thanks
a lot.